7:15 in K-Pels. We play musical chairs here in the K-Pels studio for Wingin' It Wednesday. You know, it's a good problem to have enough chairs for everyone to sit in, but everyone has their particular one they like. And since Bernie's not here today, Brandon, I'm going to blame it all on you, sir. You messed it all up. Because you know what? This is the chair I don't like. And Carol got the chair she don't like. And so now we're moving them around.
Brandon does it. I'll trade with you.
Oh, gosh. All right. So you guys had a happy Mardi Gras.
Oh,
You're here.
Absolutely.
So, Carol, let me guess. You
you
stayed
look
on
like
the...
you had a really happy
Okay, well, I will
I'll
tell you like I told Brandon. I left all my stuff strewn in the guest bedroom at my in-laws' house like 2 nights ago. Coming to work this morning. Coming to work yesterday. Well, I thought I was going back to pick up my own stuff. And here comes Sarah. No, we're not going back. I had to pick up all your stuff everywhere and brought no contacts, no glasses, nothing. So that's why I have like bead dust and leftover Mardi Gras zhuzh in my eyes. So that's why they look so red.
I can see it.
That's why. So, it's not because I had a really late night or anything. We just,
Oh, he's
we're
just
here.
saying that. We know that. Well,
But you probably stayed on the safe side of town. Did you not even see any of the Mardi Gras going on?
Not much.
Yeah.
Not much. I've done that for so many years. When I first came to Louisiana, it was New Orleans, New Orleans, New Orleans. Mm-hmm. So I burnt myself out on New Orleans, and then I burnt myself out on Lafayette.
Yeah.
But, look, and as a matter of fact, I'm glad you brought that up, because the other day on the show, on the Ross Report, we were talking about Mardi Gras, and I said, one of the police officers who was on Mardi Gras duty all the time, and I said, so give me the difference between Festivals Acadiens, Festival International, and Mardi Gras, because those are our 3 biggies.
Yep.
And he said, well, Festivals Acadiens, Festival International, more about the culture, the music, all of that, the food. He said, Mardi Gras, big party drunk, and I said, well, I think Mardi Gras is about the culture too.
Yeah.
And then I realized, it got me to thinking, what's the economic impact?
Okay.
All right. The latest study that I saw was done in 2010. All right. So that's 7 years ago. In 2010, the economic impact was 110 million that they could figure out. This came from the, one of the websites that they tried to update it. Well, you could, let's say you increase that by 3% a year for the next 7 years, that gets you well over 130 million in today's dollars. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's being, that's being really conservative, because, prices have gone up more than that.
Well, it brings a lot of people. And you know what? I've known people that have come here. It's a much more economical Mardi Gras experience. Hotels are through the roof in New Orleans. It's harder to get around, et cetera, like that.
Yeah, it really is more family. So then the other day I was driving in, and I was driving to see my client in Jennings, the bank. All right. They celebrated their 20th anniversary. So I brought them some king cakes. So it got me to thinking, it looked like a Chinese fire drill in there. They had racks and racks and racks, just the meshes, just the Ricky meshes on Gilbo Road. You know how many they sold?
How many?
20,000, just that one store. And she said they're still making them. People are still ordering them.
Warren, you're a king cake fan?
No, but I try to avoid most of the Mardi Gras, because like Carol, I got burnt out when I first came down here after about 10, 12 years of that, jumping up and down and waving and partying hardy.
Throw me those stupid plastic beads, mister.
But my favorite story from yesterday was this woman I know. She carried this guy with her to the parade, and she said that he's standing there, and some woman threw him some draws. And she said, why she did that, I'll never know, because he caught him, and then he turned around and took off and chased that float for about 3 blocks. And said he was still praying this morning he could find that float.
Gosh, well,
gosh. I mean, so 20,000 at the meshes right here, just one.
That's pretty crazy. Well, it was Mardi Gras for us, but it was Tuesday everywhere else, and of course, a big night last night in Washington as President Trump had his first real big speech in front of the joint sessions of Congress. Let me read this to you this morning. First of all, guys, Brandon and I were talking about earlier. I mean, everyone, let's just pick a name out of thin air. The one we were talking about this morning was Van Jones. If Van Jones could come out and say, your speech was great, you were presidential, for the first time we saw the compassionate person you really are, then you may as well just take that you impressed everyone else in between.
Exactly.
Really, the big thing, Ari Fleischer, one of the press secretaries during the George W. Bush administration, tweeted last night, as good reviews pour in, here's a lesson that I hope Trump takes to heart. The power of the presidency comes with optimistic leadership that, instead of counterpunching, be an optimistic leader with strength and clear policies and rise above the daily counterpunching. Warren, let's start with you. Do you think he accomplished that? Where are we as far as the policies? He talked about immigration. He talked about healthcare. He talked about military spending.
The main thing that you just quoted Ari Fleischer saying that I totally agree with, he used the optimal word was leadership. Last night was a leadership speech. It was a leader up there talking. There's one thing that Donald Trump has been his whole life. He has exhibited leadership qualities. Leadership is honesty, trust, and loyalty. A lot of people didn't like what he said during the campaign when he said it and all that. Quite often I was surprised and shocked at some of the things he did, but you know what? He was being honest. And he was saying a lot of the things that most people were thinking most of the time, but what he talked about last night was what real America faces every day, and it's jobs, it's economics, it's health care. It's people have asked over and over and over and over, why are we doing all of these things for everybody around the world who hates us, and we're neglecting everybody here at home? When you're sitting there talking about educating children, giving them opportunity, giving them hope. Do you know it used to be a criminal act for you to not send your kid to one of those public fail schools? Up until just a few years ago, if you pulled your kid out of a school and you didn't enroll them in a accredited school, which you didn't have money to do, it was a criminal, it was a crime. You could go to jail for it. And so they had these people who are trapped in these inner city schools that the last thing they try to do is to educate. The last thing. And he got up there last night and he started saying those kind of things to give them a chance to get an education. Because without a foundation, without that basic education, the doors are virtually closed. And who can argue against that? But a lot of that bunch sitting up there who had the snarls on their faces, who refused to clap, and even though they wanted to, but they couldn't because, quote, it's the other side who's saying that. And it takes me back to the Clinton administration when all at once Clinton got up there and started saying the things that the Republicans were for. And that what did they do? They turned on their own agenda. They fought against their own agenda. And so I think you're going to see kind of the same thing this time. The only difference is that the Republicans, you have enough people up there with enough common sense, I think, to get on board and pass these things that this country really needs passed.
Carol, what do you think about the policies?
Well, I'll tell you, even beyond the policies, I mean, you expect that in a speech such as that, addressing to Congress. What I think really came through, and especially struck a lot of people who are used to the combative Trump, saw the heartfelt Trump. And starting out with, as we close Black History Month and we see there is no place for racism, and the what's going on with the Jewish cemeteries and synagogues is shameful and is being so underreported. It is just criminal what's happening, and that he brought that out at the very first in that speech, that there's no room for hatred or discrimination in this country. But then he went on, and that was the most amazing thing, to make a policy speech like that with such heart and such warmth and such emotion. That really came through, that the man really cares about these issues, and he's willing to take the slings and arrows to get them implemented. It is not going to be easy, and as Warren and I have pointed out many times before, he'll have so much pushback from some in his own party. These guys cannot get together, cannot circle the wagons. They just, they all have their own agenda, and of course they all have their favored lobbyists and favored businesses and industries that support them very heavily. And so they're beholden to them instead of to their constituents and the country as a whole. They are United States congressmen. They are United States senators. They represent states and people, yes, but they also are in this whole thing called the United States of America, and they really need to start thinking big picture. And I think I like that at the end where he said we have to stop thinking small, start thinking big. So the tone was just amazing. Even Charles Krauthammer said if he had done this on his inaugural speech, he might have, solved. But I tell you the truth, I think the man is pacing himself. And I think as he goes on and he becomes more presidential, he's already put out there that he is going to do some radical things. He is shutting down, whole branches of divisions, EPA, State Department, and they are long overdue.
And we will get to that. The ones that are going away, also the ones that are added. Warren, wrap up this topic. We'll get a quick break.
I'll tell you what really concerns me is you look back in history, 1936, 1939 in Germany. you saw the National Socialists over there who were anti-Semitic. They were anti-everything. They wanted power. They wanted the government control. They had what became known as the Night of Broken Glass, when they went around and they trashed synagogues and storefronts and stores that belonged to Jews. And then you had the Night of the Long Knives, when they actually went out there and killed people. You look at what's going on today with the Nazis in this country, the National Socialists, those people out there who are screaming and hollering, and the ones who are rioting in the streets over people, over Trump's talking about doing good for America, and they're sitting there saying, shut him down, shut him down, shut him down, resist, shut him down, shut him down. We need control. We need control. Is there any difference?
Between the left, the far left, and the far right? The rest of us are caught in the middle.
They're all far left. That group is, Hitler was left. Hitler was left. Socialism means government control. Government control. That's leftist. Everybody the left wants to say Hitler was right wing. Hitler was not. He was a leftist.
A fascist.
Stalin was a leftist. And fascism is left because it's government control.
Yep.
All good thoughts. All right. We're going to come
and by
back.
the way, there's some very good movies coming out, historically based, that I think The Zookeeper's Wife is one. Bitter Harvest is another. Harvest of Shame, Bitter Harvest. It's about how Stalin starved the Ukraine.
Wow.
Yeah, and then there's another one, Dunkirk. So there's some really good, because the kids, they're not getting the history in the classroom, so I'm glad they're getting it in the movie theaters.
We will talk about the big immigration surprise that happened last night when we return, and always taking your calls at 232-1542. This is Wingin' Wednesday, brought to you by our friends over at Service Cadillac. Stay with us.
I have time to go get some coffee.
Absolutely.
All right, and taking a look at traffic right now, we do have one crash to report to you. It's on Cameron Street in Lafayette, and it is at its intersection with University Avenue. It's just right by the Four Corners area, but it's a little bit further down as you go near T-Bob's and in that area.
7:29 at Wingin' It Wednesday on Acadiana's Morning News. Carol Ross and Warren Cottle settled in. So one of the, Warren, you mentioned a few minutes ago talking about his biggest problem, and you called it months and months and months and months ago, would be people in the Republican Party. You saw people come out instantly yesterday and start to talk about his call for some sort of immigration deal where there's a compromise on both sides. It wasn't like the clear path to citizenship like we kind of saw the makings of and under the Obama administration. But I don't think anyone expected he was going to even bring that up, because first, we've been talking about securing the border first and dealing with the other second. Do you think it makes any change to kind of where we are in the process for that?
I think what it does, it brings to reality that, that you can't have all of everything on one side, and I think he knows that, and everybody else knows that, and that when you look at this thing, the immigration problem is pretty convoluted. You've got these situations here, just like I bought out a deal about a girl who came here with her mother. Her mother married an American, had another child here, and never got that girl citizenship. She wound up graduating from high school. She wound up graduating from college. The whole time she thought she was a citizen. She turns around and applies for a passport, and they said, well, you're not a citizen. You are an illegal alien.
Wow.
And so they start through this, well, how long am I going to have to wait to get my, well, we don't know, years. And her friend's dad, moi, said, well, let me see what I can do. And one of my friends, who was in the State Department about ready to retire, called him. He said, what's your name? Blah, 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 blah. He said, that's one of those things that falls in a gray area. Let me see what we can do. She wound up getting her citizenship within a matter of weeks or months or whatever. Yeah. And I mean, but those kind of things, and you got a lot of that stuff here, and that I agree with what he says. The people who are committing crimes and such stuff need to go. And and there's a lot of compromise that's got to be on both sides of the whole thing. The one thing I would like to point out, when they talk about sending the woman in Texas back who had committed the crimes with the forged documents, and then they were talking about her child was left behind. Why don't they just do what the Clinton administration did? They set the precedence. What did they do with Alien Gonzalez, the child?
That's right.
They sent him back totally against the federal law.
Because a child should be with a parent, right?
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. So they just sent the child back totally in violation of what the federal statutes and all said. So, so why don't we just do that? Just pack up the kids and send them back. Oh, well, so
Yeah.
it's a
There's a lot of put your money where your mouth is
That's right.
with this
That's
with this
right.
issue. Carol, what do you think? Does it
Well,
change?
I thought the Democrats and the Vestal Virgins all in white were going to have a complete meltdown.
Okay, let's just say this. I can't believe I'm
Was
going
that
to
the
say
stupidest display you have ever seen?
I'm going to use two stupid puns. Put your money where your mouth is and have your cake and eat it too. Now, I'm so happy that no one is talking about that group in white or the fact that they didn't clap.
Well, I had to
because
bring it
the
up.
speech was that good.
I had to do it.
You know?
They are the handmaids
I'm
of
just
the
saying,
far left.
I'm glad they don't have the headlines
The
today.
only thing they're lacking is the temple in Washington, D.C. Or maybe that is Congress, I'm sorry.
Maybe so.
That was a totally offensive to think you'd have that much groupthink. And when he brought up voice, victims of immigration crime enforcement, that whole movement that he's doing, I thought they were going to have a complete
You could
meltdown.
hear it.
You could hear the gas. Bring out the paramedics. They're about to fall out into the aisles,
Now, I will
having
think-
the raptures.
I'll thank our
It's
friend
just
George,
unbelievable.
our listener George, let us know, because Brandon and I were talking earlier and said, why is Debbie Washburn Schultz, has she not ruined herself enough? And then he sent me her house page. I forgot she's still elected into
of course
office,
she is.
but just so smug and really not clapping
Snarky.
for the
They were very
Seals
snarky.
widow just
Yes.
because.
Yes,
Trump's
exactly.
guest.
And
That's
that was
just petty.
really the most, and that I think was the absolute, that was the perfect moment for Trump in that speech, getting all the policy in, but then getting in that hint on McCain saying, we didn't get any intelligence. Well, the whole thing was planned during Obama administration. It was executed when Trump looked at all the facts and said, okay, let's do it. There were some problems in the execution with equipment, and a helicopter went down, etc. These are the kind of things that happen when you have a leader who is willing to take that risk because of the payoff. And he brought it back and he said, your husband did not die in vain. We had lots of actionable intelligence in this raid. And I was just wishing, McCain and Graham are going to have a town hall. You going to stay up for that one, Warren? You're going to have a frontal lobotomy before that happens.
Oh my God!
But seriously, CNN. I think they're doing a town hall on CNN. Can they just shut up long enough for Trump to at least get some of his agenda? And by the way, when you look at the waste in the government, and I've checked out this story that came in. It wasn't Paul Ryan who proposed the legislation, but several years ago, it was a congressman, I think, from Wisconsin. No, not Wisconsin. That's Ryan. But there was another guy, and he has his name on the bill. Actual legislation that actually lays out the amount of waste in our government. I mean, if people really looked at some of these things, the International Fund for Ireland, why are we giving them $17 million every year? Ireland is doing
Gotta
real
look
great
for
under
that.
the EU. I mean, their economy is booming.
Have to look at those line items.
It's just, Hope 6. What is Hope 6? $250 million. The Amtrak subsidies? Oh, don't even go there. $1.565 billion. If they let them run it like a real railroad.
I was about to say, let it run it. I mean,
yeah, exactly. But this serves Congress. You see these, Joe Biden rides the Amtrak up to Washington from Delaware. Did that for many years. So let's protect Amtrak. I mean, it just goes on and on. You can see a list. It's a 3-page long list of all the, just Title 10 family planning, $318 million. How many departments is under the department, the Director of National Intelligence? 15 or 16?
Yep.
Why do we have all those for security? Are there some savings that can, I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in the budget. So when he says he's going to cut some of his domestic spending to pay for the military increase, which is desperately needed. Yeah, and by the way, that sequestration never came from Republicans. It was the guy who was it Liu, who was Obama's Treasury Secretary at the
Jack
time,
Liu.
and they came out of a meeting in the White House, and he suggested that as a way to get back at Republicans and force their hand, which it did.
Well, it continues in Washington, the excitement there, and the excitement here. Wingin' It Wednesday brought to you by Service Cadillac. Look, it's a new month. Why not start it off with a new ride with $15,000 off brand new 2016 Cadillac STX sedans? Also, $9,000 off 2016 ATS. The selection is endless. Colors, trims, everything you might want. Go to Service Chevrolet Cadillac, 1212 Ambassador Caffrey. You'll see it. And by the way, it is Wash It Up Wednesday. Go get your car washed over there, too. It is pretty much the only thing going on that side of town. And take a break from some traffic. Go ahead and pull on in and drive away with a clean car. Drive away with a new car if you're me. Kind of how it goes. 7:37. We thank to our friends over at Service Cadillac. We continue with Wingin' It Wednesday next. So the governor is back from Washington after a whirlwind weekend, asking for additional aid for flood victims. But there was also a fancy schmancy dinner.
Yes, there was.
That happened at the White House. You know, one of the things, Bernie and I were talking about this yesterday, that I heard over and over in coverage of, when I was in Atlanta over the weekend, coverage of the governor's meeting. It's the Governors Association meeting that happens every year in Washington, that Governor Nathan Deal of Georgia does not go to that. He struck it from the budget, in the budget process, because the dues were $300,000 per year, and he didn't think it was worth the state's taxpayer money to do this. Now, there are very few times we could pass along some good political decisions, especially when it comes from the budget, but maybe we have to go as far as Georgia to find it, which then made me ask, well, wait a second, our governor's there. Does that mean we're paying $300,000 a year in dues for this association? And is it worth it? I mean,
what do you get from that?
Well, I guess the only thing I could even think was maybe because we do have a lot of industry, maybe the rubbing shoulders and the relationships is worth it.
With other governors?
That's pretty steep.
They're all cutthroat. They're after each other for business, different for industries and that sort of thing.
But anyway, I thought it was kind of funny because now he's back in town.
Well, that would be a good thing to find out, where that line item in the budget, if you can get that clean. I mean, really, we're coming up to another session. This time it's a regular session, but it's a fiscal session, right?
Yep.
So we're going to see a lot more shenanigans going on. And have we seen the full task force report on budget reform? Have we seen it? Have you seen it?
I've not seen
Brandon,
it Brandon,
have you seen that?
No, I have not.
There you go. Do you think we will see it before the session starts?
They say we will, but I don't even think that a lot of people are even clear what happened even during the special.
Exactly.
And it's done with.
And that is exactly what they like. They like to keep us like the mushrooms, in the dark and covered with you-know-what, because that's exactly how they do the budget process in Louisiana. It is terrible, and it really needs to change. And here we go again, another shortfall going into a fiscal year. We know that we're going to be, what did they say, 400 million short?
Yeah.
Some ridiculous amount.
It's
so
just
somebody
a Band-Aid.
over in Baton Rouge, can you figure it out that maybe we're doing something really stupid to have to face this every single year? Is there something structural that we can do to correct this? Maybe. Do you think, Warren? Warren's looking at me like I'm a crazy person. Yeah, I mean, I keep asking this question every year. And I know, I saw it from the inside. It's not pretty. It's the way, the way they play the game. The governor has a lot of clout.
Yeah.
I faulted Romer. I faulted Edwards. When Edwin Edwards came in, he did one thing. He did convene that constitutional convention, and they rewrote the Constitution. But again, I mean, that didn't fix everything for sure. We keep amending it, and it's still a problem. So somebody, I think Romer tried to do some fiscal reform. I know he did, and that didn't go anywhere.
So Warren, we do know what we did. We did tap into the rainy day fund to balance things. For now, where are we headed in the next year or so?
Well, kind of the same thing. Here's what I really fear is going to happen. Is that the economy, I do believe, is going to improve. I do believe that you might see, you're going to see it start, a little bit of a revitalization of the oil and gas industry. And you're going to see the budget of Louisiana bringing in more dollars simply because the economy is going to push it in there. And the spenders up there are going to claim, we solved the problems. If we hadn't raised those taxes, if we hadn't done the things that you stupid people out there who work for a living didn't want us doing, we wouldn't be flushed with money today as we are. It was us who did it. It was we who did it. And you're going to have Jay Darden come out there and say, how great of a job we did. We had the magic wand. You didn't believe in us. You're running around there with your black pointed hats on and riding your brooms and had your cauldron going and saying that, that we were all evil and such stuff, and we were the intelligent ones. And, and so then we're going to have a much more bloated budget year in and
They're
year
not going to
out.
solve any real problems.
Not going to solve any. We're going to create more problems for everybody, and that's what I fear. And it's just the same old stuff. Is that they refuse to face the facts. That's the one thing that I do appreciate about Donald J. Trump is he's sitting up here saying, "Look, these are the facts. These are the things we need to work on. These are some of the things we can do." And that it just makes sense. And so government has not done it because they've lived for so long on borrowed money, not thinking about tomorrow, not believing in tomorrow because they just thought, well, I'm going to be gone. I need to get as much money as I can while I'm here for my kids and whatever, whether it's stolen or borrowed or whatever.
Never earned, though, right?
Never earned.
Well, and a friend of mine brought up a good point. Back when the Katrina happened and the mismanagement of the road home money that was so colossal, and it caused Kathleen Blanco not to run again, and she got a lot of flack for that, and chose not to run again. Now what's going on with this flood money, and it usually, and this is the cyclical part, when we have a downturn, something happens that we get some federal money, some disaster happens. Here we are again going for more flood money, and $2 billion more, 400 and some million already in, and they're going for $2 billion more. So, and then as Warren says, the upturn in the oil industry, because our budget is so cyclical and still largely dependent on the oil industry and all the ancillary businesses that go along with it that are not directly in the oil industry, but we're all in the oil industry, right? If it goes down, we all suffer. And then we were hit with the flood. So now we're looking for the feds to bail us out again. If it's not Medicare money, it's hurricane money, flood money, whatever.
Warren, wrap this one up.
One quick point. They're talking about the Democrats wearing white last night. I guess this would be white for purity or whatever. Wonder why CNN and those outfits didn't show the pictures of the big march in Washington when Democrat Woodrow Wilson was in office, and they had the 20,000 people marching, Democrats marching, whatever, all in white, with their pointed hats and masks and the white.
Well,
robes.
it's a reference to the suffragette
Democrat.
movement. It's a reference to the suffragette movement because Woodrow Wilson was,
A Democrat.
Yeah, you're right, exactly.
And a
exactly.
total racist.
Oh, was he a racist?
Oh, big time.
I remember even, what was it, the night? No, it was for the inauguration. The big deal was made about that's what Hillary Clinton wore. She wore white to the inauguration, and many people said that was why. Same situation as those folks last night, but I don't think the average person even knows that that's what that was about. It's a...
The Democrats haven't been this upset with Republicans since Republicans freed their slaves.
But the women's vote movement, actually, there were a lot of Republican women in that women's vote movement because they were also abolitionists and, that going way back in the history, way back in the history of the Republican Party. If you look at the history.
We're going to leave it there for this segment. Thank you, Warren Cottle. We're going to hit a traffic break right now and call in for an issue on the interstate. Brandon, please. I never thought we could move on to a brighter subject. Traffic crash on the interstate. There we go.
All right, so we do have a traffic crash. This one is on I-10 eastbound. This is near the Henderson exit. Again, I-10 eastbound near the Henderson exit. Traffic is backing up in that area. So make sure you watch out for that. Now, that's not the only crash we have to report. We have a couple of other crashes as well. We have a crash on Raymond Street. This is just as you're coming off of E. Broussard Road. And another crash. This one is on Cameron Street in Lafayette near its intersection with University Avenue.
All right, 7:54 as we wrap up Wingin'
Wednesday.
We
wrapping up. Wob had too much Mardi Gras.
Wob had too much to drink.
Wob had too much to drink. Too many Twinkies. All right, okay. Ce semaine incroyable.
Okay.
Huh? This week in Unbelievable.
Okay.
Listen for this slogan. Oui, on peut. 42,000 goobers in France are trying to recruit Barack Obama to run for president of France.
Oh, gosh.
We peut. Yes, we can.
Good.
We peut.
Good.
Okay.
Get him
Open
over
change
there.
in France.
Get him out of here. Get him
right,
out of Washington.
Carol will come up this afternoon at 2 o'clock on the Ross Report. I assume we're going to talk more about the president's speech.
Yes, we are.
All right. It comes up at 2 o'clock, 2 to 4, the Ross Report right here on KPEL. Coming up at the top of the hour, we will have news, weather, and traffic. And also, Stevie P with some interesting insight on UL Sports.
Go Cajuns.
Go Cajuns. It is 7:55 now at News Talk 96.5 KPEL.